Well, thank you, my brother. Once again, my name is Comrade Ahmed Oloje. I'm the gubernatorial candidate of African Action Congress. Well, as a politician and a technocrat, I believe we've not been having it so good in terms of the people we propose as our leader. Over the years, if you are to look at the kind of setting we find ourselves, you will discover that our people are underserved. They are underprivileged. They need people, especially the so-called youth you mentioned. They need someone who is going to rechannel their thinking into a productive ventures. When you are to look at the population of youth that make up the state and that have been involving in active political participation, you discover that 70% of the so-called population that vote are being constituted by the youth. But come to think of it, have we been given the right opportunity to change our narrative? Are we doing well in the area of economy? Are we doing well in the area of commerce? Are Kwara youth doing well in the area of entertainment? Are we doing well in the area of technology? Are we doing well in the area of manufacturing? And so on and so forth. It is high time we sit together as brothers and have a critical conversation that we cannot continue. We need to chart a new course. We need to chart a new direction for the development of our state. We need to build a technologically skilled and weighty workforce. We need to build a society, educated society. Human capital development is a necessity for us at this critical juncture in the history of our dear state and nation. Of recent, you discover that people are moving here and there to China, to UK, to Canada, and the rest of them. Can every youth in Kwara and Nigeria move away? Are we going to shy away from our responsibility? And that is why someone like me has to take a certain step that, look, we can't continue in this way. Because I remember the word of Karl Marx that said, if you are giving the proletariat good, a time will come that will be giving them good that they are going to be refusing you. They will be demanding for something else. But even if we don't want to go into full revolution, we have to take into reformation that will change the life of our people. And that is why I heard the clarion call of our people that says, look, we need a fundamental change. We need an effective administration of the state. We need to chart a new course. And that is why someone like me have to come out to change the narrative for our people, for the youth, so that technologically and other areas they'll be able to make an appreciable impact.
Well, thank you very much. But I think I still want to go back to that question. From what I read in the document, you were as of rep aspirant in the CPC in the 2011 election, and I think in the PDP in the 2015 election.
Yes.
Which means you belong to a camp. I don't want to call it a camp, but you belong to those people that have always stood against the old order, in what we call the old or the old dynasty. Have always stood against it. But that's a part of, I mean, let's say the conglomeration of the old order won in 2019, but as the journey started, as they were going on, they felt like the pack of cards, and the conglomeration now, they are in different swings. But at what point do you think did you come to the realization that even the new hand is not good enough?
Well, as a progressive, I believe that we don't have to be static. Being in PDP, ACN, CPC, all we want is a fundamental change in the welfare of our people. And that is why in 2019, when we find ourselves converge on the platform of the so-called APC, we are in PDP before, but immediately when Bukola Saraki left the party, left APC, we have to switch to the other side because we are progressive, the way we believe, and some of my contemporaries then. So we believe we have to effect a fundamental change in our state. We have to chart a new course. But along the line, Immediately after the election, when they swear in the present governor, Malam Abdurrahman Abdurazak, I discovered the so-called transition. The setup transition doesn't have a clear direction of what they want to give the government. And as a developmental economics, I have put up a lot of things together that, look, for Kwara to be prosper, we need to effect some fundamental change and put in a lot of reforms. So, painstakingly, it took me 3 years to put my policy, the policy support aligned document together. And I gave it out to the so-called transition committee so that they will forward it to the governor to be a very, very interesting thing for him to put together. And even the so-called the wife of the governor gave her my document so that Kwara will not be stuck, will be able to move forward. And I discovered that, come to think of it, 85% of what they are doing today is from my own initiative. To God be the glory, I thank God. Even though we are not together because of the way because I believe there is this particular adage in Yoruba land that says, you understand? Nobody knows where it pinches than the so-called originator or the initiator of a particular idea. They've not been following what we put together. So, which is not giving a direct and significant impact in the life of the so-called Kwarans. So I believe we have to put a full stop to it, and we have to come out and show the people what we have, what we can offer them. So that is why I left APC to align with the so-called Progressive and Welfare Party, and a youth-inclined party, which is African Action Congress, the Omo Party. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. But to begin with, are you saying in essence that you were in the party? Let's say that Governor Abdurazak or his own camp has never been to power since 1979. He has always been the Sarakis. But you were also, as you said that since he has not gotten power before, nobody knew the kind of leadership style. Are you saying that you don't enjoy the kind of leadership style? Is that why you left?
No, not per se.
I'm not saying the leadership style in the recent, but I'm saying that you said you want a fundamental change. Have you seen the change since 2019?
Well, to some extent, to be fair to ourselves, he has been making some move, which I consider to be part of the developmental processes. You understand? But let me give you an instance. If you look at the social safety net package, or the so-called packages, the economic package, the bundle, the quasi of a thing, or the ownership they are giving to our people.
Everything is on the quasi.
So they are giving people 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. Whether to look at the economic value of 20,000 in Nigeria of today, if you give a woman 20,000, if she buys a bag of semo for 6,000 and some other stuff like that, how much is it going to remain, my brother? So the economic value, does the money have an appreciable value, or can it have a real impact in the life of the so-called traders, to be fair with ourselves? Because at least the state is generating a huge revenue and the allocation is coming. And some other bilateral and multilateral development assistance are also coming in. If the government are going to be sincere with our people, they need to structure the so-called social welfare package in such a way that people will be able to enjoy the so-called dividend of democracy. But what we are seeing does not correlate, or does not so-called improve the welfare of our people. You understand? We have to put in place a government have to put a robust economic package that will salvage the situation for us. Take, for instance, the so-called Barti and Kayama, where we are getting most of our food, staple food. What are the government doing to make sure those places become a commercial agricultural hubs, a cluster farm where our youth can be actively engaged and you give them incentive? What are the government doing to crash the so-called price of commodities, which is taking much of the so-called purchasing power people are striving to get? So these are the critical areas we want to come in to make sure we put in place a lot of economic stimulus packages that we assist our people that we alleviate the so-called problem he encounter on a daily basis. People are running away from this country. People are moving away from this state as a result of unfriendly economic policies. So we want our best brain to be assembled to change things for us. Of reason, let me give you another instances. The government, the so-called government, gave up their second economic innovation package, which they call grant of 1 million of recent to our youth. You understand? I'll call it our youth because I believe some of them are Kwarans. But overnight, they just announced they are going to give a grant to entrepreneurs, and at the end of the day, between 5 days, 7 days, they started rolling out money without onboarding the so-called youth. How do you want them to manage such a fund? Even if you are getting the money from gutter, are you going to be giving it out without training the so-called youth to be sustainable in whatever the business they are embarking on? So those are the kind of area we want to look into. That look, we want to create an economy that will sustain itself based on the right policy that are being initiated by the government. Not all this caricature system of siphoning our money.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy with that angle you went, and it's an angle I've always argued against personally. But let's start this Owosho, Owarubu, and then the so-called 1 million naira for the youth. As much as we will say that we've not seen its like before, some people will say no, we've seen its like before. And this is it. The Owosho, the market money, trader money, was started by the federal government of administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. We've seen it before. The biggest lapses in that program is the recovery. The NSIP, the National Social Investment Package, Commission, I've always complained about the issue of recovery. And nobody has the data on whether they have been able to recover the money or not. A lot of money has been told that. It got to a point that even the president said that it is better for us to give all this money out to people that have not tasted it before than to give it to all those rich men that have always been investing in it. You know, it's just like we are pointing at two sides of a bad coin. But that's one. Then this government came in, brought down the program without an advanced recovery plan to help us. And here we are. Just last month, the governor announced that he was going to spend 600 million naira on Owosho and Waru. But that is 30,000 people will be given 20,000, 10,000 naira. We talked about value. We talked about that now. As a developmental economics, if as a governor, if you have 600 million naira to spend on social investment package, how would you, 600? Just say 600 million naira. What do you think the state will need? How do you think we can spend the money better than giving 20,000 naira?
So what we are thinking is, one, in the area of agriculture and commerce, in the olden days we have what we call commodity board. If a farmer produces a certain kind of produce, so the commodity board will buy it from them and they put it at the store. They will give you, if you are interested in being a retailer or seller, you get a license. They will give you a license. You understand? Instead of the money, government to be giving money that is not, to be giving money out to businesses that are not viable, you can channel it into a produce. Buy a produce, segment the so-called traders where they have interest. You give them the goods, you set them up and give them some incentive. You understand? And you track their activities. Through that, they will be able to run a sustainable business. Instead of you giving them a cash, at the end of the day, between a month or 2 months, you discover the money is no longer there. And for even recover it, what are you going to recover? The business that is not sustainable. But when you have a sustainable means of getting the so-called produce, you can be giving them and they will be returning whatever you earmarked for them, for each traders, and the profit will go into their pocket. And the people with I talk about onboarding, what I mean by onboarding is the training of the so-called entrepreneurs. If you are able to give them a good training, and they put in place a plan, or now they are going to spend the so-called money, or the fund, or other grants or loan you give them, then you'll be able to know a business that worth giving 1 million, the business that worth giving 500,000, the business that worth giving 100 million. We've been seeing it, what the federal government are doing, 100 for 100, that is 100 million for each businesses. I was a beneficiary of federal government and World Bank grant on several occasions. True, you win ambassador in Kwara State. I was a GEM project, a World Bank project and federal government project, collaborative project between federal government and the World Bank, and several others like that. What we need is to build a sustainable economy. How are we going to build our people to be sustainable in whatever they are doing? Without that, even if you give them hundreds of billions, you will still not recover it. It will still not be sustainable. You will still continue to be cycling within the vicious circle of poverty and directionless.
All right, sir. All right, sir. Then the last point you touched was the KWRS, the money we're generating internally, then the issue of FAC, what is coming in the monthly allocation. But the state government would differ from what you're saying, that they don't have enough money. And that's why we have to go out for bonds. We've gotten bond, we've gotten bailout, we've gotten rescue money. I think not quite long ago, I think somebody's talking about Paris Club, and maybe he's not making it's not making the noise as it did in 2014. But here we are. We have gotten more loans than we used to. Maybe the government is still trying to run away from the fact that they've gotten more loans. And a lot of people have said that the projects we've seen on ground, the look of the city does not commiserate as if we've gotten more loans than we used to have. But here you are. You talk about the money. If you become the governor today, let's say you're the governor, because you are here as the governor, the people want to know what you do if you're a governor. Are you also planning to burden us? Are you also planning to burden us with debt?
Thank you, my brother. And that is what I'm saying the other time, that we need to create a sustainable economy. We need to build our own economy, a production-based economy. We need people who are going to think out of the box for us. If the government asks people who think for them, we wouldn't have found ourselves in this. We had a lot of mineral deposits in Kwara.
A lot.
Talk of cobalt, sapphire, gold, a host of them, aquamarine and the rest of them, lithium, which they are using in production of battery. We can set up all those factories here in Kwara.
We have the largest deposit of lithium in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken.
We can set up a battery manufacturing company in Kwara.
But sir, I think this will go a long way, because I think some people
and we are going to generate revenue. Sorry, my brother, I'm not cutting you short. We are going to generate a huge revenue. Of recent, you will discover that the governor make an announcement. In fact, the chief of staff of the presidency and the resident country director of probably an agency in the UN to come and look at the so-called garment factory, you understand, which was set up at the cargo shed. You won't believe that I gave His Excellency the idea of using the cargo shed for Ilorin Greater City project, an urban project that I believe we can be bringing in a lot of those. You understand? Because if you are to look at the so-called garment, when I saw the so-called garment factory of it, when I heard it, I thought that is where we will be producing textiles and the rest of them. But I later discovered that it's just a commercial tailoring center where they will be showing clothes. So, which means we still depend so much on importation. And we have a cotton bed in Barti where we can plant cotton and process it. Set up a factory there and process it. It will generate huge revenue for Kwara. We have University of Ilorin mini campus here. That is a property of state government that we can turn around and designate that kind of area. And Adewale Estate as our own tech city. You understand? So we can create a center for development and innovation where we train our youth, give them a bespoke training, a state-of-the-art contemporary knowledge on blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, robotic science, automation, and the rest of cyberspace security. You train them. Let them move with the pace. We can create a global development tracking unit, a governance office, where you track development across the globe. So, and you come and replicate it here. We have a lot of embassies that have consulates here in Nigeria. And Let me tell you, the governor has a wife who happens to be a diplomat, a career diplomat, who can be able to guide our governor that, look, the consulate can be reached, we can know the businesses that are doing well in overseas. And we can invite them to come and set up something here in Kwara, which will generate huge revenue for us. So you want to tell me the amount we are generating is not much and we cannot think out of the box? That's not the way to go about it. So we have to do something. Our youth are becoming something else. We need to rechannel their thinking. We need to make them the most educated in the area of technology. Look at the climate crisis here and there. Look at the flooding. What we experienced in this 2022 has never happened in the history of this country. And the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, of recent make announcement that Africans are going to have the opportunity of securing close to $1 trillion in the climate investment. What are we doing? Does any Kwara youth, or most of our youth, do they know anything about climate investment? And about $100 to $120 billion are going to we are going to have the opportunity in Nigeria. So what are we going to do to corner the substantial part of this? Through climate investment, through decarbonization. So these are the areas we need to involve our youth, make them productive. Scholarship, thousands of scholarships are wasting on the internet for them to travel out and go and see contemporary knowledge and expertise something on how they are doing it. And we continue to be wallowing in poverty. We are complaining. Freedom is not given free on the platter of gold. We have to seek for it. We have to fight for it. And that is what I represent. A new generation of thinker and doer. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I can feel the rigor. I can feel the patriotism. But here we are. I saw something on the platform. You said you want to create Ilorin municipal areas, and then you want to create LCDs. How do you want to go? You know, the first person that tried it in Nigeria lost. I mean, how to run his state without the government allocation.
Thank you. With all the plan I've laid down now, there is nothing that is not sustainable except you don't want to do it. Except Kwara, confuse them, especially through the so-called social media platforms, which is the most economical way of reaching out the so-called youth. Our people are informed these days. What they hope for have not been seen. The real impact of governance have not been felt by our people. So, inshallah, we'll make sure we touch every facet of our society, every facet of our local government, so that we'll be able to tell them what we have in store for them. And I believe, inshallah, I'm an incurable optimist. I'm not a repentant believer in the fact that I'm going to get it, and I will get it, inshallah.
All right, sir. This is another thing, very important. I think Ilorin is regarded as the only urban area in Kwara State. Some people will even call Ilorin suburban because I've heard the wife of a governor. I heard the wife of a governor, a former governor of Kwara State, talking on an international platform and called Ilorin a rural area. Wife of a former governor. That's very embarrassing. I don't want to mention this. And within ourselves, we regard Ilorin as the only urban area. How do you reach out to people in Kwara South, people in Ipolo, Ikiti, Gona? Then how do you reach out to the Nupis, the Borus? These people, most of these people are agrarian people. And then, so a lot of people, there was a time we talked about local government allocations, some local government subsidizing other local government. The explanation was that the people in the rural area are moving to the urban area. And then you need to bring their money, their share of the allocation to the places they are living. That was the explanation then. But how do we make everybody realize? I think that's what India is doing. Make them realize that the city you were born in, you can give the city a name. The city you were born in, you can make your name there. Artificial intelligence works everywhere. Robotic, cyber security, everything works everywhere. You can help yourself everywhere. How do you reach out to the people at the nooks and crannies, as you've said?
And that is what we are talking about. I said, the dictate action plan for modernization and renewal of Ilorin, Igbomina, Ipolo, and Ikiti axis is underway. I have a detailed plan for that, and we are also putting some other things in place.
Not that.
Yes, because it's my own agenda. You know, these days, you don't have to be doling out everything. So that is one. And the Jeba Patigi water transport and waterfront development corridor are going to be developed. We open that place. We have a lot of forestry reserve there that we can generate a huge revenue for the state. We have a lot of seafood that we can be packaging and create a blast raising facility for them there, a processing center that will continue to generate huge revenue. So through the seafoods and the rest of them. So the water transport corridor are going to be developed too. So it can be a source of tourist attraction center. We'll have a lot of mineral deposit there, and we can make some places, some upcoming towns there, a semi-urban center where they can easily access whatever they need in the city. We don't have to be moving here and there. The drift is so much. The so-called the pressure on the so-called urban infrastructure has made us realize that we don't have choice than to open up other areas. And the Baritin Kayama and Moro local government, we fall under the Kwara North. We have to create state farm. The government need to create a state farm to make sure that we crash the price of commodities, to make sure that we be able to run the so-called school feeding program, which is not sustainable. What they are giving to our children is petit. It doesn't show in their body.
I'll disagree.
It doesn't show what they are giving our children in terms of the so-called school feeding program. I gave them the idea. It's part of the plan that I gave them. But it's not been running on a sustainable basis. So by the time we have a state farm, the government will be buying the so-called staple food at a reduced price. And our children will be able to take the so-called proper nutrient intake. So, and also the so-called the farm estate, which we also known as a cluster farming for our youth. We are going to mobilize them and give them incentives. And we are going to make sure that they specialize in 2 or 3 crops. All those economic cross production are going to be engaged. The jatropha, the moringa, the soya beans, and many other products like that. The cuttings, we are going to do a lot of plantations. Kwara has a comparative advantage in the area of agriculture, and we are going to utilize that to the optimal.
All right, thank you very much. But you've always mentioned the youth, and I will tell you that a very large number of the youth are of schooling age. What's your plan for the youth? I'm not so finished there. I know of a governor in this state, a former governor, who was about me. I think there was a time I schooled in Kwara, so I have friends in these student unionism. I was never a member, but one of my friends told me that one day they went to a governor. They told him that they needed scholarships. Foreign scholarship. Then he told them that he has friends that have studied abroad, and he can tell them that he's better than them in the area, in his own country. If I should say that area, you'll be able to guess who that governor is. He said he's better than them in the areas they all study. What is your plan? Are you coming? Do you want to subsidize the people? I'm a child of the poor, and fortunately for me, I've always been a public student. Primary, secondary, university. I paid somewhere around 17,000 naira at University of London, which is very, very okay. Even with the current state of economy, it is very, very okay. But how do you help our children for them to go to Harvard? Those that have I'm not saying everybody.
The capacity.
Those that have the capacity to go to Harvard, to go to Yale, to go to Oxford, and all these best universities to bring the best brain, and then they will come
best
with
knowledge.
They come with the aim that this state has helped us. Let us give them a payback, as they do in China.
Yes.
How do you?
What's
your plan in this area?
Thank you, my brother. Let's start from the foundation. I told you earlier on that we are going to do a mass quality construction and remodeling of our school with full staffing and state-of-the-art equipping for full school enrollment. That's one. School feeding program. We are going to run it and make it sustainable. That's 2. 3, we are going to create local and overseas scholarships. And loan, we are going to create student loan for our children and the youth. We are going to create a talent hunt program where we'll be able to identify the people that need vocational, technical education and the rest of them. we are going to create a lot of opportunities. Like, we are going to place special emphasis on science, engineering, and technology education, which I made mention, like robotic science automation, drone technology, artificial intelligence, cyberspace security, blockchain, and the rest of them. Those are what fetch people money. That is how you can become a billionaire overnight in dollars. And that is the kind of opportunity we want to create for our youth. You understand? We want to procure like 300 school buses for all the schools in Kwara. So it's a gradual thing that we'll be doing. So, and we are going to create a center for development innovation where they will have a bespoke training. And we are going to make sure that we facilitate advanced coaching centers where they can embark on GMAT, TOEFL, and those requirements. And we are going to make sure that, inshallah, free passports are going to be created for our students to enable them travel out. And some of them may even sign an agreement with the government that after so-called year, you can come and replicate the so-called knowledge you have gained so that we'll use it to move our state forward. Those are the kind of a host of opportunity which is dovetailed in our policy support outline document, which we are going to incorporate into the so-called State Development Action Plan come 2023, inshallah. So we have a robust plan.
New order of 2019. After the election, they started falling like a pack of cards, and people started saying, and then a lot of things. I think the biggest takeaway in that maybe the struggle was in the first place not on behalf of the people. Maybe it was for my pocket and for that person's pocket, and what works for Mr. A and what works for Mr. B, not what works for the state. How do you talk about the conglomerate? I mean, the coming together of the people that debated the old order in the 2019 election?
Well. Human beings, we are of different characters. I would say that. And I believe if you said Mr. A is a bad person, Mr. B is a bad person, do you want to tell me from A to Z everybody are bad? The so-called the people that bring in the so-called agenda of Otoge, you want to tell me you cannot find like half of them that you are going to sit down, let's reason together. What are the ideas you have? Let's contribute everything and make the state forward. We need a good manager, people who can manage people, who can manage. We have a lot of best brain, who can be able to set a path for us to navigate. But here we are. People are just moving from the party because even the so-called people who are getting appointment under the present government are people who doesn't want it. They are people who doesn't have ideas of how to move the state forward. An undergraduate who hasn't completed NYSC, who doesn't have any requisite experience, even though a youth, you gave them a commissionership. At the end of the day, they are not able to deliver.
What about people that you don't even know their academic qualification?
A host of them are there. If what we need is experience, having the best certificate at times in the world is not a prerequisite to success or delivering. But experience matter a lot. If a youth that has gotten 2 years, 3 years experience, the government can give you an opportunity and guide you. You are making FCs, you are making commissioner. These are people who are not able to attract any development to the state. Are we going to continue like that? The so-called honorable, how many of them have initiated a life-changing bill? How many of them? And even the so-called people you are hanging under the canopy of affirmative action on women, or women equity, or gender equity. At the end of the day, the so-called people you are giving are mediocres who doesn't have ideas or have to run a government. They don't have a developmental ideas. You gave an honorable to one guy in NASA who doesn't have experience. You are giving the Ilorin West that happened to be the center of politics of Kwara. You are giving a ticket anyhow to people who doesn't have idea what it takes to initiate a life-changing bill, an impactful bill. Are we going to continue like this? And we are in this century. If you go to America, all those Eastern and Western Europe is as if you are in another paradise.
Planet.
When are we going to have a huge tube, a train tube, or a magnetic tube train? When are we going to be having all those development infrastructures? Look at Dubai. Is it not the same money they are making through fossil fuel that are making them to turn their state, it's called UAE, into a level now.
Who everybody want to run to.
We are operating a monolithic economy, a civil servant domineering economy. And look at the problem of climate crisis, the pandemic, and the global recession. All these attest to the fact that we need an innovative planner and a technocrat who can chart a new direction, who can attract the foreign direct investment and the local investment. Let me give you an instance, my brother. Look at the learning setting presently. The so-called economic power doesn't reside with so-called indigenous of Kwara. If you move from Ojaba to Ita Amodu, to Gegele, to Ita Amodu, to Taiwo Road, come back to Ojaba back. Look at from Agaka to Taiwo, to Sawmill, all the Taiwo Ki and Taiwo Sale. Factually everywhere in Ilorin, our people are not being given an opportunity in the area of trade. The government cannot provide job for everybody, but you can provide an enabling environment.
But what if the governor tells you that you spent close to 1 billion naira on social investment program, and some people got 1 billion. Even there was a person that got almost 3 to 4 billion. 4 million naira for his business. Is there a better way to do it than that?
If they have a good agenda, a sustainable plan of how they can run a sustainable business and create a multiplying effect that is job for other youth, is okay. The so-called guy that was brought, that initiated the so-called Kwasi, when you look at the way he started the program, it's fantastic. But look at what they are having today. Doling out money without onboarding the so-called youth, the so-called entrepreneurs. How do you want to go about it? And that's another area. The critical area I want us to look is what we consume. Look at a pata market, meat market, the so-called slaughterhouse. A host of people are being consumed by a fundamental problem they don't know is within them. There is what you call a zoonotic disease. This is as a result of what you call meat consumption, unhealthy and contaminated meat consumption. Since the olden days, Ipata market has remained like that, without any innovation. If they slaughter a cow today, the probability of them selling out everything is very low. So, what is the government doing to make sure that people are not eating the contaminated meat? The environment with which they practice their so-called business is unfriendly. They are using tires to smoke the so-called cow for us. What is the government doing in this area? So, and inshallah, come 2023, if we are given the opportunity, the Patama meat slaughterhouses are going to be turned around. We make sure that we create a blast freezing facility for them. We are going to procure a lot of meat cooling vehicle, which they are going to be taken around, and the so-called mobile meat shop. We are going to bring in a lot of innovation, which is dovetailing in our agenda for development of the state.
All right, so I think next time when you come, we'll have the time to talk about the agenda.
Thank
Just
you.
the agenda.
Thank
I think
you.
we've talked, I think
Thank
we mixed it up. Thank you very much. That's been a very lengthy, educating, and interesting conversation. That is my comrade Ahmed Aliyu Oloje, the flag bearer for the gubernatorial election in the coming general election for the AAC, the African Action Congress. The party has always been known. Some people call them troublemakers, but I say that there's no troublemakers in politics. I think they are mostly
it's a youth party. It's a reformist party. We can't just continue like this.
Episode will tell you that a youth party because this is touted as a youth-friendly by a governor, and then the other party in the state that said that the next government is for the youth. So,
and that is why we have to create the credible alternative, which is we.
All right, sir. All right, so thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
If you invite some other time, we'll have the time. Thank you very much, our viewers. I remember some of the countries that we do have a lovely day. Thank you very much.